Mel, I was just telling you, it's funny to watch you. I've been watching you for a while now, and here we are. I'm like actually talking to you. I'm like, this is great.
Ah.
Thanks for doing this.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love your show. You get really to get people to really be themselves, which is a great quality. So I'm excited to be here.
Well, we have some of this, similar people. I mean, Kunstler. I watch everything he's on.
I know he's the best. I love him.
Hey, how did you come across his work?
Well, I actually got his book when I was in college in New York. His first book, The Long Emergency, was assigned, and so years later, I had read that, and then I always thought about it in the back of my head because it was really about where we have gotten with fossil fuels and what's happened in industrialization or a lack thereof. And then you also have had on my friend Tom Luongo. And one time I'm watching Tom and I'm like, oh my God, that's it's that writer I love because people don't know, he's also a playwright. I spent a lot of time in theater when I was a kid. So I also knew his work as a playwright and writing fiction. So I reached out to him and he was nice enough about 3 years ago to jump on the show. And now we're pals and I send him information and we laugh a lot. But there's so many great voices out there. So, like your show and my show, I try to bring on people because I want to know their opinions and what they think. And he happens to always be on top of it. So that's been a great journey with him.
Well, so him and then Luongo, and if you had Dave Collum, I'm assuming you've had him on.
I haven't yet, but he's on the list. But also Craner. There's a whole group of people that are just really they have a different perspective from where they come from, and I think it's really important that we don't just listen to people that we agree with all the time, but we listen to people that make us think, and that's really what I try to do on my show is bring on people that are smarter than me, so that it helps me think and helps the audience think.
I say that all the time. My intelligence level. I don't know if it's working, but I'm just really good at asking open-ended questions. What, where, why, how, and who. My first job in high school, I was a telemarketer. So that's where you learn that stuff.
Yes, you do. You do. I think that was my first job in high school too. Interesting.
Really? What were you selling?
Makes sense. I think I was selling cookware. It was like, it was like I could walk there from my house and it was like next to the library. So I got like a 4 hour a day job. But it didn't last that long because I had a little fear. I still do of calling random strangers and asking them to do stuff. Because now you can't do that. Now they have all the lists. But back then you were calling everyone.
I was from 5 to 9. I had a stack of leads, an old school phone, and I sold $700 magazine subscriptions. I don't know if I ever shared this on here, but it's funny. You go through I'd have the script, right? And let's say
I know.
And I would ask you questions, and I'd say, well, Mel, they have standard ones for women and standard ones for men. Do you like gardening or do you like quilting? And you say gardening. Okay, Better Homes and Gardens. And I'd pick out five magazines, and I also would throw in 1 year of TV Guide for free.
Oh, that was a big seller, I'm sure. That was a bonus
and then
back in the day.
And then at the end, I would say, okay, like a question mark. And you would be like, okay. And I'm like, okay, I need your information. I need your credit card. And then you'd be like, wait a minute. What did I just buy? Oh, never mind. I don't want it. And I then hang up.
Oh God. Oh yeah. And one time I did do it for at one of because I was a writer for I still am, but for 22 years in LA, and that requires you to be unemployed a lot. So I did pick it up again later for a high-end dating service. Nobody wanted any part of it. So after like 2 weeks, I was like, it's too much. I have enough rejection as a writer. I can't take rejection as a dating it was before apps and Match.com, so early 2000s, and I was like, this is too depressing. I have enough. So yeah, it's a weird thing.
Didn't you find though, like doing that type of work? I mean, in preparation for Hollywood, like I spent some time in LA when I first started this. Believe it or not, you're my 1,000th episode today. This is number 1,000.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah,
Thank you. I'm honored to be that.
It's crazy. And but I was thinking about the trips that I used to make to LA 6 years ago. When I started this, I was calling people that I knew from high school. I grew up in Northeast Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Two people in particular, one that I graduated with in 96, he goes to Harvard, gets a degree in cognitive neuroscience. He started writing for the Lampoon, became the president of the Lampoon, and decides he didn't want to go to medical school and goes out to LA to be a comedy writer. And he ends up hooking up with the Simpsons and worked for them for 11 years.
Yeah.
And then he meets Mindy Kaling and becomes her executive producer. So I went,
Oh, cool.
I cold called him and I said, hey, I'm doing this podcast. And he was like, yeah, send me the link. And I didn't even have that set up or anything. And I go, well, I'm going to go be in LA. And I wasn't, but I just figured I'll go there for a weekend.
Right.
And I did the podcast at Universal Studios. But the point I'm trying to
Oh, how
make
fun.
is it was unbelievable. I'd never been there before.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, that's fun.
well,
That's really impressive.
but though I couldn't imagine you being there for as long as you have. One thing I took from that weekend, I did another one with a girl who ended up becoming a visual effects producer for Amblin. And then I
Oh,
also
wow.
did one with a boxing trainer named Freddie Roach, who owned a
Yeah.
gym in Hollywood. I knew him as a
I know
kid.
that gym. It's like on La Cienega. Is that? I think I remember that. I know that name. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a small town. LA is a very small town. People don't understand.
well, and I remember though, like summing up the weekend and then hooking up with a couple of people that were trying to make it, and they were doing the Uber Eats, and they were living with like four people, and like I give you credit for doing it as long as you have. Like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, honestly, I started in New York and I went to NYU, which gave me a big advantage, I have to tell you. I wouldn't recommend people go to film school now. I'd recommend that they go work on a film set as a PA for at least a year before they decide to invest in that because it's not glamorous and it's 18-hour days and you get paid nothing for years, or that's how it used to work when you had to earn it. And by the time I had a really good mentor, I did a lot of theater too, and I was in the comedy world in New York. And I had a mentor that really helped me. He's still in the business, very, very high up. And he told me, do not go to LA. First of all, everyone told me, from my acting coaches to my friends to my parents, don't go to LA. You're doing great in New York. There's no reason to go to LA. But for whatever reason, I did a film when I was in film school that ended up going to festivals in the late 90s. I went to Sundance when it was still awesome and about finding talent. And I went to LA and I never came home. So, but I was told don't go out there without a job. Don't go out there seeking to be hired or seeking fame or whatever, because it's a lonely, horrible road if you get caught in that spiral of kind of selling yourself in desperation. So when I went to LA, first of all, I moved in with a family friend who was an editor for Jackass at the time, and this is the late 90s.
it's a
And
great
then
show.
yeah, it was nuts. And then also I went out with a job. So I had a little different experience. I didn't go through I wasn't partying. I wasn't in the beginning, I was very much like, I'm gonna make movies. I'm gonna be the female Woody Allen, which was my goal, to write, direct, produce, and be in like the whole thing. And I was lucky enough that I had people that knew. And I remember he said to me, this man, he said, I don't think you have a thick enough skin for Hollywood. I think that you really should stay in New York. New York works for you. Hollywood's basically going to eat you alive. And within my first 2-3 years, there was a lot of early success because I came with also an agent from New York and all of that. But within a year or two, it really did eat into my heart and soul, and I really didn't have the thick skin for the ups and downs. And there's a lot of manipulation and abuse. And I was there late 90s, early 2000s. So there was a big shift in Hollywood in that time where I say that it was like covertly evil, and then it became overtly evil. And evil, I mean, in terms of I talk a lot about what's happened to the children and just ugly stuff, especially. So I started speaking out about that pretty early on, which didn't make me very very popular with some people. But I've been very blessed. I've had great jobs in Hollywood, and I have a lot of friends. Many of them made it out. But when I started publicly, I had worked at Mar-a-Lago when I was younger. My parents live in Palm Beach, so after years of going to the Golden Globes and award shows and seeing the celebrities line up to meet Donald Trump, the second, basically in 2016, that I not only said that I was voting for him on Facebook, but also that I was probably going to go to Palm Beach and try to see if I could get involved. It was like a mass canceling of my friends. It was like, how can you? People turned really fast, and it was really shocking to me, the change, because I knew that at least the people I knew had no problem with him. He was one of them. So that really started me on a very different path. And but also Hollywood became, so everything that you see, BLM, DEI, the LGBTQ plus leaning towards pedophilia. That was all in Hollywood 10 years before the rest of the country heard about it. Oh, and the entire climate nonsense came out of, participant and Al Gore doing Inconvenient Truth. Just there was a true underbelly transformation in Hollywood where talent, integrity, earning it, all of that became second to carrying the message of the gatekeepers. So luckily, in 2014, I moved back to New York, and then I started doing shows, and then I started my own show when COVID shut down the world, and I was very skeptical. And I still love it. I think filmmaking is the most important thing to me, and I love it so much. But which is finally happening, that people are decentralizing. They're no longer asking the Hollywood gatekeepers for permission. I believed I have been covering, because I knew a couple of the girls at Royal Palm Beach High School in the early 2000s involved with the Epstein case. I had encountered him very early in New York and his whole network. I encountered them obviously in LA and Palm Beach. So for me, I just saw a different calling and a different path. So as much as I still have projects and work on them, they're more based on faith and forgiveness and the human spirit and things like that, rather than where I used to be. It just has changed my whole, my love of writing and creating characters and all of that has not gone away, but it has changed in terms of what I believe I want to be involved in. And that is paramount now. I'm not just going to take a job like back in the day. And near the end of my time in LA, I would go in with my writing partner and we'd pitch stuff, and we saw what was happening. They were like, "No, can you change this character to this? And can this person be that? And you got to add this, and we can't have that." And you're thinking, well, then why am I here? What is this about? What is this about? And then you want me to write what you want me to write.
It's just like, what's
and
the
it's
point?
got nothing to do with me. So, and everyone was seeing that. Also, before I left, I had a lot of friends, especially white men in their 50s and 60s, that had Oscars and Emmys and could not get a job. That it was just something terrible was going on, and it was rotting the place out. And I feel like right now is the first time I feel like there's going to be a rebirth, but it's not going to be centered on those people, those studios, or even Hollywood itself. It's going to be centered on talent and ambition and perseverance outside of Hollywood to rebuild it, where it's. And I love LA. I couldn't live there anymore, and I know a lot of people that feel that way. So right now, for the first time, honestly, since you and I are not going to the gulag when Trump won, I'm very excited, because a lot of people have come to me lately with projects. People have found my show that might have turned on me in 2016, and now they're like, "Wow, I saw you talking about this or that." So I just have a lot of hope for that business, and I hope to get back to that someday. But right now, I'm fighting for America and the world, and freedom and truth and transparency, because if we don't get that, then it's going to be difficult for anyone to get anywhere in terms of a positive change in this country. So for now, I'll do this, but I still love that business. There's great people. I don't want people to think that everyone in Hollywood is some kind of demonic entity or involved with Diddy or Epstein or Weinstein, because the crew is the most important people, and most across the line, they are craftsmen that spent decades becoming expert at whatever they're doing on a set, and a lot of them are still on our side. They just had to say and do things, especially during COVID, that they felt like they had to, or they were going to lose their pensions. I've been in a union since 1995, so you kind of look at that. But there's a lot more good people than bad out there, and I think that there's going to be a renaissance in film and television and music and everything that is going to be led by faith and God and the people.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you is, What do you think is going to occur between those bigger studios like the Amblins and the Disney? And because the thing that I never understood about it, they're pushing, 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 conditioning people. They had to have known that it was not going to work. I mean, look what's happening with Marvel. I mean, Star Wars is an absolute
Yeah.
joke. The last
Yeah.
Indiana Jones. I haven't watched any of that stuff.
Me neither. And I used to love it too. What's going on really? Two things. The CCP had infiltrated Hollywood about 20 years ago on a major scale, and a lot of people were taking money
Where did it
from
start with that, Mel? Let me interrupt you. Where did when the CCP started infiltrating Hollywood? Where do you think that it started?
Well, don't forget, we had Dianne Feinstein have a CCP spy working for her for 20 years. And then you go down through the people. I think it started through the politics in California. And then it wormed its way in, but also not different than what happened in a lot of universities with students coming in from the CCP, getting technology and training and all of that. It happened in film as well. Editors, technology, all of that. The CCP, it appears, came to look and take the technology and the work product and even when I was in film school, it was first we were on Avid, we were using 35 millimeter, 16 millimeter cameras. By the 5 years later, it's all digital through Sony. But I think that it happened the same way as people started working in the business and moving their way up, and people didn't know that they were transferring the technology and the new be it for animation or digital film or whatever, back to China. And then what happened is then China started saying, well, then you have to make the movie in China. And I have a couple friends who did that, started huge productions, 50 million, $100 million. But when they got to China to shoot, because China, I think a lot of technology of ours, they started building movie studios in about the early 2000s, maybe late 2000s. And then they were offering directors to go shoot movies in China. But once they got to China, they were being watched all the time. And they had, CCP people on the set, and they felt like they were being watched in their rooms and all. I have one group of friends that were there making a movie and shut down the movie and came back because they said that there was no free, like that they felt they were being constantly watched and that there was, they were afraid. And that's what happens in communist China. So, and I believe 3 years ago, China pulled out a ton of money. And at one time, I believe right during around the pandemic time. And this is because they were putting money into the agencies, into the studios, and into some specific actors and directors. And it looks like they pulled their money out, which was a big thing. And then during COVID, with the lockdowns, were bad there. But then what happened is, off of COVID, the actors had a strike. So, I mean, the decimation of Hollywood has been like, boom. But then we also had the Harvey Weinstein case, which there should have been many more people involved and arrested for that. But on top of that, then we had the inability for them to put out anything. You could not put out a movie, a TV show without being completely woke and following that. And now what we know is that BlackRock, Vanguard, State Street, they own everything. And at the end of the day, they didn't care if Disney lost money or Paramount or anything lost money, as long as they were carrying the message of the ESG and the going along with that. And I just think it's all imploded right now. From what I can see and hear, it's impossible to raise money even for A-list directors. People like Scorsese and even Barry Diller and other people are like that. They've just totally, especially with the amount of content being made that is garbage and then spewing out there because of all the streaming services. The quality of content has gone from woke to like talentless. They stopped caring about talent and earning it. Like for me, when I was younger, starting out, I went out in '98, I think, to LA. You knew you had to give about 10 years to be successful, whether as an actor, a writer, a director, or anything. Like it was a grind. Overnight success is not real, and it never was. And if you don't have nepotism, and even if you do, you get one chance. But people knew that if they were going into that business, that they were going to have to earn it. And that changed. It changed a lot in the last 10 years. It really changed to who's in the, like, do they fit the right? Do they have one person of color, one transgender, one non-gender, one this, one that? And also with the directors and writers, you were a lot more likely to get money out of a program that was sponsored by like AFI or something for women or for LGBTQ or for people of color. And then these programs after that, the promise was then you'd get to direct a TV episode or you get financing for movies. So a lot happened to shift it away from raw God-given talent on all levels to boxes to check. And then when the Academy decided that, they're not even going to consider movies for awards anymore without checking multiple different boxes to qualify, I think that's when a lot of people had it. I'm very good friends also with Roseanne and a bunch of people that were canceled during that time. That's why I think that right now Hollywood is like the ashes that needs to rise like the phoenix, and the only thing that's going to do that is God-given talent reinvesting in creativity. And I really do think that because the problem was distribution. And I think because of all the canceling and all the manipulation, I think it backfired because a lot of people out there have found different ways for distribution. Like my friend Scott Weiper, who did Flynn's movie, Martini, who's done a bunch of movies, did Lebeto's movie, people like Mike Smith, who did Out of Shadows, people like Mickey Willis. These people had to, the Sorbos, they had to go ahead and say, we want to still make movies. It's in our blood. We're driven to do this. We have to find out not only how to finance it outside of the system, but how to distribute it. And the good news is that I believe that there are a lot of distribution models that are about to explode that are for people that really want to go back to movies that inspire, entertain, and bring the country and the people together rather than what we've been seeing for the last 10 years.
Well, I think that's one of the blessings, right, with the digital age that we're in and the ability to share information and self-publishing books. I know we're going to spend a few minutes talking about your book here, but I think that's one of the beauties of, having access like the way we have. I was just reading yesterday, I think, LeBron James's media company is losing millions of dollars. And he was able, or not him, but his partner, who he went to high school with, Maverick Carter, I think it's Maverick Carter who runs that company, but they were able to raise all this capital, and a lot of these athletes have started these types of media companies, and they don't make it, and they're losing all kinds of money. So it makes me wonder, like I always wonder this, like with Disney, for example, they knew they were losing money, but yet they continue to do it. Do you ever think like maybe the federal government, somebody is just propping them up and just pumping cash?
100%.
Because the whole thing is a Ponzi scheme.
Yeah, and also, I mean, Netflix, like it or hate it, I'll tell you right now, when Susan Rice is on the board and they have a giant deal with the princess and the Obamas and stuff, and participant media is putting out nonstop movies like Inconvenient Truth to push the climate change. I always go and look at what people from Hollywood are going to Davos. What people are in it for that. And don't forget, there's been an FBI and a CIA office in Hollywood from the beginning. Out of Shadows and Into the Light by Mike Smith really shines a light on that. And Kevin Shipp talks a lot about it. Hollywood has always been, to a certain extent, a partner, really, of the military-industrial complex, all the way back to encouraging people to go to war in World War I, which I don't believe we should have been in, nor anything else. But that's another thing, the manipulation, the propaganda. I think it's less even about the lack of talent and plot and storylines and depth of creativity and ingenuity, and it's more about people don't want to be propagandized. And everything you turn on these days, within 5 minutes, you feel like, oh, here we go. Nobody wants that. They want to slide into the experience. When I was in film school, especially because I was a screenwriter, the goal was always at the end of the movie, you wanted people to be speechless and going inside to kind of process what you put out there and hope that it either changed their mind or inspired or made people look at things differently. But you weren't forcing them with obvious, woke propaganda from the first frame to the last, which is what we're dealing with now. It's just not realistic, and people want to see things that they feel like they're lost in the plot or the story, and a lot of that's been gone. So, like I said, the canceling of everyone and the abuse of that has made people get to a place where they don't need to ask Hollywood for permission. And don't forget, it was set up from the studio system forward. It was set up to have gatekeepers, and it's a very abusive industry. And to make it to that level, a lot of times the people that are the most abusive at the top were abused along the way. So the new model for Hollywood, I think, will emerge and be a lot healthier of an environment. I would never. People warned me not to go out, multiple people, because it really, I mean, I spent 2 years basically going on, meetings, auditions, working on sets, all of that. But at night, just completely dark to the core. And almost everyone I know, a lot of people didn't make it out of there alive that were my friends that went there. So I really do think we have a renaissance for the arts. Upcoming, led by faith in God and wanting to put out work that is lasting and is good for humanity.
What is your biggest concern right now with, we're in this lame duck session. Man, it seems like the whole world's on fire today, doesn't it? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I saw South Korea's, I don't know if that was lifted. I read it was lifted, then I read it's not lifted.
Well, you know what I think is going on? I think that, honestly, my opinion is that our country was taken over by a coup in 1963 with the murder of JFK, and everything since has been a cover-up, and the people doing the cover-ups get promoted, and those people end up in the power positions, and then they keep that. This is the deep state kind of intel world we live in. And I think right now we have to be really honest with the history of this country, and many things that have been hidden from the people for faux reasons of national security, I believe need to be come out. I mean, I wrote this book. Here, I'll show you it. Americans Anonymous, because I went through, I feel like our country has kind of hit a rock bottom, a dark place. And it's not just our country, it's the world. And frankly, in my book, I lay out how I think this happened, and there's many realms to it. But we have a global public-private partnership that is working above this country. And frankly, it is united with many other oligarch and billionaires across the world that treats the planet like they own it. And we're just lucky to live here. And they have all their conferences, and they are ruling above our nations as regional supposed governments, be it Davos, Bilderberg, or the COP conferences or the World Government conferences or whatever they're doing all over the place. They have been exposed over the last 4 years, which makes them even more dangerous, because we are talking about a global group of people that control basically the financial system. I call them the financial partners of the international financial cartel and the parent company running the world. And we are watching them. So right now, I think that it is when Donald Trump says they're not after me, they're after you, I'm in the way. I want to say to people, no, they're not after America. They're after the world, and America is in the way. Our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our DNA to be fighters against tyrants and totalitarianism. Frankly, I think that we just voted our way out of for the first time, and we have a short period of time as the people to actually make a difference. But I believe we're the first country that were afforded the opportunity to vote our way out of communism, socialism, and eventually totalitarianism. And what we're dealing with now is this digital public infrastructure with the Gates and all these people. I believe that the track and trace surveillance system that was built in China, that's running right now with social credit score and ESG scores and full surveillance biometric data day and night everywhere you go, is actually built for us and the world. And all the criminals, government gangsters, as Cash calls them, I frankly at this point believe both Bushes, Clinton, Obama, and Biden were all involved in this global public-private partnership. And when Obama signed this country on in 2015 to Agenda 2030, that the powers that be, the multinational corporations, all the way up to, I believe, the most powerful person probably in America is Larry Fink right now, also on the board of the World Economic Forum, ESG score creator, Great Reset creator, on the board of Council of Foreign Relations. BlackRock's the only company that can do business in communist China. Those people have been running the controlled demolition and the liquidation of the United States to benefit themselves. And that's why we, the people right now, have to be really honest with ourselves that we have a big problem, and the problem is us, that we've been propagandized, manipulated, beat down. I think the whole Yuri Bezmenov model for in his original interview with G. Edward Griffin, that's Bezmenov is the, I know you know this, but for the audience, is the defector from the Soviet Union who wrote a love letter to America and kind of said, these are the ways that the communists are going to infiltrate and destroy America from within. And I think we were told that they weren't there anymore, and now we can see them in plain sight. So I find this a really great opportunity for the individual citizens in America to stand up. You know, when Ben Franklin said we had a republic, if you can keep it, he meant actually you, if you can keep it. So, you know, all the trouble that we've been going through is really because there is a group of people that have everything to lose, and they have never been closer to their Kissinger, Brzezinski, Rockefeller, Crown, one world government. And frankly, they've never been so far because of shows like yours and other shows of some of the people we mentioned earlier. There's hundreds of millions of people around this world that see them. And it makes it dangerous. But America is the last stand for freedom, privacy. We have no privacy right now. We got to fight back, I think, against the unconstitutional Patriot Act. But again, it's going to be we the people in our local sphere of influence, in our local community, state by state, holding our representatives accountable to go to D.C. and actually do their job, which is to clean up this country. And that's on all levels. So for me, it's a very exciting time, but at the same time, it's a dangerous time because I don't believe that the enemy we face, who I call the global public-private partnership, I don't believe that they have any allegiance to any country, to any flag, to any religion, to any race, to any anything. Just like out of 1984, Orwell describes the state as power for power's sake and will keep power by any means necessary. So we got to get through this little pathway. But remember that Trump is sand in the gears to the globalist takeover, the globalist plan, Great Reset, Fourth Industrial Revolution, whatever. He's not the solution. He's the respite for us to be the solution.
Well, and I think, you know, one of my biggest, this just happened to me this morning, you know, my biggest concern, one of them, and I feel like it's taking place. People still talk to me about the election, how great of a day it was. I said, my response is, it's over. It's over. And this is the problem. And this guy in particular, he's like, you know, I'm good, man. I'm good. You know, I can just go on cruise control. He's not married, no kids. And I'm like, okay, well, you live in a community, right? Like I live in Phoenix. You live in Phoenix. You're hanging out here in the winter. So what do you don't have to do anything?
But no, I think this is people like us. Yeah. People like us, me and you, and I've seen you out there, and I you know, I've been touring the country. I speak anywhere I can about, because for me, I talk about the global threat, and which I think is very dangerous because our multinational corporations, especially BlackRock and Vanguard, not only own almost everything in this country. Larry Fink said right before the election, he didn't care who won because he's not going to be affected. And then 3 days ago, 11 attorney generals led by Ken Paxton are suing, thank God, BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street for antitrust. We also need the same thing to happen to Google. But in the meantime, we the people have swamps in our backyard. What people don't fully, I don't think, get at this point still might be that the infiltration that came, especially after World War II, and so on and after, came local first. And we have these people, these, you know, right now in America, we have no privacy whatsoever, whether it's them demanding to put a smart meter or these cameras or surveillance bike lanes or things for sustainable development that are really just contracts and money laundering.
Let me interrupt you. Don't you feel like we already have that, though, with these Ring cameras and like the
We do.
traffic cameras, and so it's like this. We're already in a surveillance state.
We're in a police state right now. It's very dangerous. We all saw the people that are honest about January 6th. That's not about January 6th alone. That's about everyone in this country. So, but that's what I'm saying. If you don't start fighting it where you are, then you're not part of the solution, because DC has a lot more problems to deal with, and Trump and all the people he's bringing in have to deal with that. But the real problems are already in your backyard. A lot of these World Economic Forum people and the young leaders, but also Bloomberg and Podesta and Kerry, and they've been Al Gore. They've been promoting this stuff all over this country, and all of it basically is about data collection and surveillance under the guise of sustainable development. The whole 17 sustainable goals, Agenda 2030, is about full track and trace surveillance from birth to death, not just of people, but also capturing of natural resources, of animals, of everything. They want to catalog it all, to control it from the top down with technocracy and technology. And in order to do that, they need to get the United States on their global public infrastructure that they've been putting the whole world on. And the good news is, without America going that direction, we can stop it for the world. They need America. But if people don't realize that that is in their backyard, and we already have no control over our data, all of the blob from the unconstitutional Patriot Act should be dismantled, especially DHS, TSA. These are all about control and surveillance. And Catherine Austin Fitts and other people have been, yelling from the rooftops. Trump winning is sand in the gears to the globalist takeover. It's only the beginning of dismantling what has happened to us, especially since 9/11, with the theft of our freedom, our liberty, and our security and privacy. That is up to us to dismantle where we are. And then once we have successes locally, then we share them with other local communities all over this country. We have 3,000 plus counties. If every county was fighting for their county and their community to dismantle all of this nonsense and take back liberty and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights and the rule of law, we would have a tsunami in this country of truth and reconciliation and transparency that would, I believe, help the entire world lift up. But, it's going to be up to the American people. It's not going to be up to Donald Trump. It's going to be up to us.
Well, and that's where, I have, people are just lazy. They don't want to get involved. And with technology continuing to advance and advance and advance, it's like they just keep tightening the grip. And it's, how do you overcome that? I don't know the answer. And people...
Well, I think...
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I think a lot of it's not ready for prime time, too. So John Podesta and John Kerry, over their climate, nonsense, Bloomberg too, but these guys have been spending hundreds of billions of dollars of our taxpayer money, giving contracts to people that are either involved in surveillance or climate stuff or World Economic Forum partners, almost all of them. And frankly, a lot of that technology isn't even proven. A lot of these projects they're not even close to prime time. They're throwing money around. A lot of that money gets laundered back to them. And we really have to start being our own, our own Paul Revere's in our local sphere of influence. Because what we also know is that the global public-private partnership parent company that runs our country right now, the Soros and Bezos and Musk and all these people, they have their own agendas. And their agendas aren't necessarily freedom, liberty, and justice for all and a more perfect union ahead. So, I understand being tired, but the one good thing I hope does happen during the Trump term is that he decimates any agency that is unconstitutional, removes them from Washington, D.C., sends a lot of that, be it the EPA, the Department of Education, any of these things, back to the states, and that we start taking back state pride. When I was in elementary school, in third grade, we had a play, and we all got to pick a county, and then we got up and we were like, I'm Suffolk County, and like everything that but we were supposed to be proud of our state first. And I think we have to go back to that federalist mentality. And if we could do that and force our states to balance their budget, not take money from the federal government, be our own watchdogs. That's why I suggest Americans Anonymous meetings or Freedom Watch or Liberty Watch meetings, We the People meetings in every community to look at the contracts going through. Where's your taxpayer dollars going? Is this even legitimate? Because the government, especially the local government, isn't going to be, policing themselves. It's up to us. And also, I do believe if we send back a lot of this stuff to the states, there's going to be all new jobs. And don't forget, there's tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of acres of abandoned farmland that should be regenerative and the soil and everything. We should have farmland from sea to shining sea. I've driven all over this country. There's full-on towns and manufacturing plants abandoned all over America by design. It's up to us to find those where we are and to start, rebuilding our local community. And also, don't forget, a lot of the local papers, especially free papers, have been bought by Courier Newsroom, an acronym, which is, Pal Jobs and Soros, and they're deceiving people locally with propaganda. We need local journalists, local watchdogs, local all of that, and that's up to us. And you know what? The craziest part is, once you do get involved in that way, it takes on a life of its own, and you take back pride in your community. You take back a sense of responsibility. You take back, the fever of the 1776 spirit, and you take pride in ownership. So for me, I think a lot of this is about finding like-minded folks in your local community that want to be the oversight. I'm sick of committee hearings in Washington, D.C. My problems are here, and and I understand people are tired, but there is a place in all of that is, it gives you a new lease on life. And I feel right now, America and the world, frankly, is in a transformational period where people need to go inside, separate from the bogus right and left, Republican, Democrat, and go inside and define who they are, what they didn't do with their lives that they would have, and what they can do now. Because I feel like this is a tremendous time of rebirth, realignment on a spiritual level. And if people grab that energy and work with it, to change their own world, they can inspire the people around them. And before you know it, every state is back on track, is stable, and the federal government isn't infiltrating our local communities with all of this nonsense that is against our Constitution and that we, the people, do not want.
Well, and it's what we should have been doing the whole time, right? And that's what
Yes.
people come to you, I'm sure. And, what can I do? What can I do? It's like nothing should have changed, even with the outcome of the federal, on the federal level, because there's nothing that I can do about that. But
Right.
what I can do is work within my own lands, work within my own sphere, my own neighborhood. It starts there. That's all I can do.
100%. 100%. And unless, listen, once you do that, because I've spoken at groups that are 10 people, I've spoken in front of 10,000 people. Once you find a like-minded group of people that take what's happening to their local community personally, and people can come in. This is why I actually base Americans Anonymous on a 12-step program, because when I was living in a very dark period of my life, and I was done. I was very young in Hollywood. It wasn't going well. I was so sad. I was depressed to the point that everything was black, and you couldn't, and which is the scariest place to be, in my opinion. And where living with every day was kind of like, is today the day I'm done? But I kind of feel that our country has kind of been in this low grade, if not full blown, kind of depressive. There's nothing I can do. They're all criminals, that this and that. I see people cheering on the people that didn't vote, which is ridiculous. But I do believe that there's power in community and fellowship. And I from my own experience, a friend dragging me out of the house and saying, you got to go, and pulling me into a church basement to a recovery meeting and walking through the door and seeing that everyone in that room knew that there was a problem and knew that they were the problem. And they also knew that they were the solution. And that's how I feel about our country right now. And when I say we should have freedom cells or We the People meetings in every community, and you know what? My mom's 82. My dad's 87. About 4 years ago, they started a We the People meeting in their community. It started out with like 4 people. They just kept showing up every other Thursday, and now there's dozens of people, and they feel like they made a big difference in the last election. That they're having a celebration party, but everyone in America can do that, and I really do think that you take on a new it's like a new energy, and you're surrounded by people that really care not just about their children but your children and this country and its future. And there's way more of us than there are anything else, but no one knows where to start. So what I hope, especially with my book, is that not only does it lay out how we got here, and I identify the drug in my book as conflict and chaos. That in America, we've been fed a steady diet of conflict and chaos for the last, decades. And we have to come to terms with that, admit that, find the exact nature of that, be honest about how we got here, and then start to make amends with each other, with ourselves, with our friends and family, but honestly, with our country. We owe this country and all the people that have died for our freedom and to keep us here a lot, especially after the demoralization campaign of the last, since 9/11. We've been on a slow but sure, I believe, controlled demolition of America by this parent company type of people, this global public-private partnership multinationals. And it's unacceptable. And there's a lot to be done. And if you're somebody that, when I was little, there was robberies in my neighborhood. So my dad and my mom and a lot of their friends started a neighborhood watch. Well, I think we need freedom and liberty and privacy watches everywhere in America. And once we have successes, share those successes, find groups in other areas. But I think we really have to focus on our stake in this nation and how much every single individual really can do and the power we truly do have. And if we start there, and that goes along with what I said before about Hollywood, about banking, about decentralization, there's so much potential in America, but we just got a respite, and we better know that had Kamala Harris, who was a front man for the global public-private partnership in this Agenda 2030 totalitarian takedown, we would not have a chance. Right now, God has given us a chance, and we need to find that God gift inside of us to be a part of this amazing, I believe, renaissance for not just America, but for the world.
Where can people find you, Mel?
Don't
don't tell them where you live because there's a lot of weirdos out there.
Don't worry, I don't. TheMelKShow.com. I have a show every single night on Rumble with people much smarter than me, where I learn while you learn. I also have the book out, Americans Anonymous: Restoring Power to the People, One Citizen at a Time. Lots of great info in there, as well as the full Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights, because too many people have not read them and taking them personally, which you must. And on themelkshow.com, I have a free resource page where I put a lot of things that are disappearing from the internet, especially what I call opposition playbooks that are really important to read. And remember, if you know you're being propagandized, it doesn't work. And so for me, I want people to free their minds and their hearts and their spirits to live their best life now. And I believe we have the win of Donald Trump last Tuesday was truly a win for we the people of the United States individually and collectively. So I hope people realize left and right, Republican, Democrat, throw it out the window, be the best you can be, and be an example where you are, and great things can happen.
Can they find your book on your website then too, I'm assuming?
Yes, they can find my book on my website or anywhere books are sold. And what else? Oh, and I'm very shadow banned on X, but at Mel K Show. Never got back my channel there, but I started a new one at Mel K Show. And I'm also on Wimkin and Instagram at The Mel K Show.
Great. And my last question, all the people that you've spoken with, all the people you've interviewed, all your time in Hollywood, who's out there that you would love to talk to that you never have? It could be non-political too. No,
I would actually like to talk to... I would like to honestly, I would like to talk to somebody like Bob Iger and ask when it became more important to be part of a club than to be great at what you do. Some of these people, maybe even I'd like to speak to those people. And above all else, honestly, I'd really like to at some point see real justice for all of the people that were involved with Epstein's case. So for me, the highest level people involved in the Epstein case would be the best people for me to talk to.
Do you think Puff Daddy, do you think anything will come out of that?
Yes. I'm telling you, anyone out there that put aside their dreams, be it to be a writer, an animator, a singer, a filmmaker, an actor, whatever it is, now is the time to reinvest because Hollywood is about to implode, and Puff Daddy is the least of the problems coming. I've known about all of this for 30 years, so I'm not surprised. But the Jeffrey Epstein case must be brought to light, and it's got nothing to do with a list. It's got to do with the danger that this country was put in by his blackmail ring and the Clintons. So hopefully that'll happen, and I hope you'll come on my show so I can ask you about you.
I'd love to. And thank you so much for
great.
doing this. Thanks for everything you're doing, and
Thank you.
look forward to more conversations ahead.
You too, and we'll get you on my show soon, and I'll get to ask you.
Mic drop. Thanks, Mel.